today I wanted to talk a little bit about some variations of the G chord. We're in a first position G, as you can see there, and I think I'm going to do several lessons like this, a little deep dive stuff, because just in the key of G, even, because I think it has a lot of possibilities. Sometimes we play a G like this, which is fine. That's a fine way to do it, depending on the song. Today, though, for today's purposes, I'm going to go ahead and use my pinky on the 3rd fret of the high E, and I'm going to finger this type of G here. You can see it pretty clearly there, I think. And the reason is I want to share with you guys some embellishments, I guess I would call it, in the key of G, where you can go without even leaving the key of G, without even making any changes chord-wise, just staying right there on the one chord. What can you do to embellish it and to put some secret sauce on it? But also, if we do it right, we can do moving bass lines, and we can also imply changes without making actual chord changes, and I'll explain that in a second, okay? So here we are with our G chord, right? Okay, fair enough. And for today's purpose, I'm gonna finger pick because that's the way I like to do it. You could also do it with a pick, Doesn't really matter, whatever's comfortable for you. But for me, I'm gonna do it with my fingerstyle because that's where I'm most comfortable. Okay, so here we are in the G. Now, what I'm going to start out is, and I gave a little lesson on this the other day about sus chords, suspended chords. It's just a raised third is all it is, which don't even worry about what that means. But in the case of G, you got your G chord, and you've got that open B string there. Now, if you close the B string on the 1st fret with the 1st finger, you get a G sus. And that's a cool chord because you've heard it before, I'm sure, many times. It implies a 4 chord, but it still has the bass, the bass root of G. So if you do that, it gets a nice movement, especially in a sort of a songwriting mode, Americana style. And that's cool. But now I want to take it further and make a little deep dive into it. What else can we do, being that we have the freedom of, because we're fingering the G chord like this, now we can move freely with both our 2nd and our 1st finger, and your pinky for that matter, really, but I'll show you that later. But just keeping it right there stationary, keeping it anchored. So I just showed you the sus chord there, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hammer on the 2nd fret of the G string and see what that sounds like. Now I'm going to come off the G and do the 2nd fret of this exact same move on the D. What does that sound like? Okay. That's pretty cool. It's kind of lyrical, isn't it? It's got like an interior melody. Now, if you wanted to start on the D string and do the opposite, instead of do an open D to the 2, open G to the 2, and maybe why not go to that sus? So what I'm trying to get to is, just by using those 3 moves, we can do variations of them and watch what happens. So you see what I did? I just went sorry. So that was a pull off from the 2nd fret on the G string, and then 2nd fret on the D and an open D, within the context of the chord still. Then, so I'm rolling along, whether it's with a picking pattern, with an actual pick. You can almost hear a song within that, can't you? And then what I also like to do is get to that sus again. So however you want to do that, there's no particular order. There's no right or wrong there. But in this case, I'm doing it actually in order. I'm coming off of that B string, the C note, and then I'm coming down on the second fret of the G, open, second fret of the D, open. Now, all the while, I'm strumming lightly on the G, so. Now, maybe come up. Get random with it and have fun with it. So that's some of the things you can do within the context of a first position G chord. I don't want to go too far with it, except to say what I'm going to get into later. I'm going to play you out with some of the stuff I'm going to take on with these little longer deep lessons here. I'm gonna move around in the bass area with like the low G. You can also do things with that where you can do a, and I'm not really doing much else other than, you know, in this case I'm fingering the third fret on the B string, which is a D note, and I'm just using that as a kind of a drone note. But now I'm walking down this. That's pretty cool. And what happens there is, what I find compelling is that you've got these strings, these beautiful open strings ringing out in a G chord, and then you're moving the bass down and up. And what it does is this kind of pulling apart, where you've got a chord that's steady and you got a moving bass part. And you've heard this a lot. Songs like, trying to think, Friend of the Devil, you know. I've been up from Reno, I was drilled by 20 hounds. Depending on who's doing it, if it's John Mayer or the original Jerry Garcia version. But I give some lessons on that particular song actually at jimmydillon.com. So again, I want to stay with what we just started with though, and just say, if you can only get comfortable with that version of a G chord, okay? And then work those notes I just showed you. And then just rest. So in really slow motion, which I think is important, I have to always remind myself, do it slowly, Jim, you know? So check it out. So that's a fun little sort of exercise in, or I guess it is an exploration in a way of what can be done with a first position G chord and make it an interesting sound. Because I think with acoustic guitar especially, what makes a song or even a guitarist for that matter, really interesting or compelling is the movement between the chords. And even when you're resting on one chord, you know, because it gets that interior melody, I call it. Now, granted, you got to get comfortable with that thumb, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, you can just be. When I play, you know, Travis picking or thumb, whatever it is, thumb picking, a lot of times I don't even worry about if it's this pattern or that pattern. I just kind of do it. Tell you, that was a heck of a lot of hours sitting around watching TV, getting that thumb to dance, right? It's a thing. But I cover a lot of this stuff in many of my courses at jimmydillon.com. So I'd love to have you check it out. And while you're there, maybe check out my music. My partner Jason just sent out an email, and a really cool email actually, where he was sort of talking about the songs that I've written over time and got a good chance to record. I was fortunate enough to make CDs back. Remember those? back in the day with the Robert Cray Band and a lot of really great, my old boss Clarence Clemens from Springsteen's band, and just had a ball recording all that stuff. So if you're interested, check it out and maybe put it on your rotation. Okay, so that's the first of my deep dives into the key of G, first position. I'm also going to explore other positions of G, like, you know, going up. Or even up higher here. Magic G chord. We'll see you down the road.